Ryan, Kenneth Branagh has finally gotten to his third entry in his iteration of Hercule Poirot. This time with a darker movie than the first, both I think literally and figuratively,
Yeah.
than those previous two, especially Death on the Nile, which was super bright, a lot of white, very brightly lit. Darking, A Haunting in Venice,
Yes.
based on the Agatha Christie novel, Halloween Party.
Yes. Which does not take place in Venice.
Apparently not.
So.
Which, since I didn't read the source material, bothers me not.
Nah.
Like we can have Agatha Christie in Venice. We've had her in Cairo and we've had her on the Orient Express. Why can we not have her in Venice? Spooky town. So we saw this. We saw it in IMAX.
Yeah.
First, I'd like to talk about that.
Sure.
Does everything need to be in IMAX?
I don't know. But I mean, on this one, I mean, I do think IMAX is something that you can only experience in a theater. I think that it's kind of, it's um, larger than life and larger than, I mean, we're at the point where a lot of people's home entertainment centers and whatever they want to, their TVs are large.
Yeah.
Sound systems are pretty good. But you really just, I don't, I mean, you would have to have an incredibly large television to replicate an IMAX experience. So I mean, I don't know. Does it need to be? I don't know, but I think that they are becoming, what is a theater experience, and how do we make it memorable? So yeah, and in this film, they're doing a lot of stuff with camera angles that is pretty interesting because what they've done is they're kind of tapping into the old 60s and 70s Gothic horror films, and a lot of those were Italian. Yeah, again, I don't know the original material, but Halloween Party is certainly not nearly as interesting of a title as A Haunting in Venice.
Yeah.
So
Halloween Party sounds like a mid or early 80s teen slasher.
If it's a horror movie at all, like
Yeah.
I mean, so and actually that is what's kind of interesting about this film is there you maybe could say that it's a horror movie. It's certainly a film that goes into supernatural sort of elements, which is not really somewhere we've been before with, at least with this character.
Right.
And there's some interesting stuff that's going on there. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know if everything needs to be in IMAX, but I certainly love it when they are.
Yeah, like we're trying to, like when digital cinemas took over, are we slowly trying to convert everything to IMAX, where it will just be going to the movies, IMAX is the default. I don't know. But this one, like I said, right now IMAX feels like it needs to be a Top Gun Maverick. It needs to be in.
Sure.
Well, I say Oppenheimer, but really, but movies like that.
Sure. I mean, but I think there are. I mean, I like seeing this on the screen as large as it was because of the cinematography that was at play here.
Yeah.
I don't. I mean, there are films that would be a complete waste of IMAX in the sense that they weren't really shot with any real artist, I mean, uniqueness, or but this, there's just something about, I mean, this one, it was, in fact, it was, the cinematography and the way that the film was done that really kept me in the film.
Yeah, it's visually interesting.
Yeah.
So yeah. So okay. So technical stuff out of the way. Let's talk about the film in general. Again, we get Kenneth Branagh back as Poirot. With, again, let's name check a cast for these kind of movies: Michelle Yeoh, Jamie Dornan, Tina Fey. It's Kelly Riley. So it's an interesting group of actors pulled together. to experience a Halloween party and a seance and some death and some weird stuff.
Some death, yeah.
Some death and some. I would like to point out that the body count here is still, I don't think, is as large as it was in Death on the Nile.
No, probably not.
I think
I haven't done the math, but you're probably right.
I feel like there was at least one more death in Death on the Nile. But yeah, but there's death. We get some death. We get some good stuff. So
of course there is. Yeah.
This is 1947, post World War II.
Okay.
It is an older, retired Poirot who doesn't do anything but take pastry deliveries twice a day and have a bodyguard to keep people away from him that want him to solve their problems.
Yeah.
Because he doesn't want to be a detective anymore. And then Tina Fey shows up as Ariadne Oliver, crime novelist who based probably most of her successful novels on Poirot, according to her.
Mm-hmm. And therefore feels a sense of ownership,
right,
over everything that he's done,
and even responsibility for him. Not, I feel protective responsibility, but you would not be who you are
exactly
if not for me, which I found marginally offensive.
Sure, but I don't think that particular writers. I think there are a lot of people who would like to ego-wise believe that they're solely responsible for telling someone else's story and making them famous. But they eventually you have to acknowledge the fact that if that person didn't exist, you'd have nothing to write about, or
which is her problem in this film.
Yes. So that's
that she's running out of material. So she recruits to try to get him off his duff, if you will.
To get a new story because the last 3 books haven't sold.
Right. To go and bust a seance, a la Harry Houdini.
Yes.
Michelle Yeoh being the medium to try to contact the deceased daughter of opera diva Kelly Riley.
Mm-hmm.
And weird stuff starts to happen in this haunted house. Supposedly haunted house, because all the houses in Venice are haunted, supposedly.
Well, this one has a
this one has a very specific, very specific backstory.
They locked the children in the basements, and anyway, dark stuff happened to kids.
Yes, so kids and doctors and nurses. So it's interesting. So we get a Poirot mystery where even he's not sure what he's seeing.
Yeah.
A lot of the time, or hearing, or what is happening to him, not necessarily just around him, because he gets involved this time. And I did like to see kind of old world weary Poirot. Just, I'm done. Just let me be done. Let me walk around and dust my garden.
Yeah.
Which I thought was hilarious.
Yeah. It's with
his little paintbrush, like a archaeologist's little brush and his magnifying glass, and he's brushing stuff off. I thought that was great. And just go and try to look for the perfect pair of eggs. Again, that was a great callback to the first film.
Yeah.
And so it's nice to see that, and then to watch him go, yeah, okay, I'll come, just because I know it's crap. I'm not really going to have to do anything, and it'll get you off my case.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, really where he was going.
Or maybe he knew all along what was going to happen. That's the kind of unique thing about this particular character, is he is slow to reveal anything and everything, because he wants to get the entire picture before he starts explaining to everyone else.
I think you're doing that thing again where you pretend you know more than everyone else.
Yeah.
But that's where we go on this one.
Yeah.
How do you feel about Like I said, Poirot's great. Branagh's great.
Sure.
I made the mistake. I was telling you guys in the theater. I accidentally watched the last 45 minutes of Henry V on TV the night before. So I saw top-notch Branagh.
Sure. This is a completely different sort of.
It is, but it just reminds you, he's still really, really, really good at what he does.
Oh, sure. He's
So,
yeah. Well, which so this performance, if you like what he's done with the character, it's not a question of is he good at what he's doing. It's just a question of do you like what he's doing.
right.
And I think most people seem to.
Yeah.
I don't know. Anyway,
Anyway.
I'm certainly fine with his, but I'm not a hardcore fan of Agatha Christie either.
No, yeah, it's been a while since I read any of it, and what's funny is that this year's the 50th anniversary of Murder on the Orient Express, the earlier film version, and it's going to be playing at the Megaplex as part of their classic series.
Yeah,
and I was like, oh my god, that'd be great. So that'd be a great double feature. Michelle Yeoh is the medium.
Yeah,
Mrs. Reynolds. Also great.
Yeah. You know how I feel about it. I mean, if I could be punched or kicked by anyone in the world, there you go.
It would be Michelle Yeoh. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and in fact, I would be like, just could you punch me?
Please.
Just
there's
punch me?
Websites for that, Ryan. There's websites for that.
No, but it wouldn't be for lawsuits or anything. I mean, I just she packed a punch and knocked me out. It was great.
Yep.
All right, I admit that to you. Okay,
yeah.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. Jamie Dornan plays a doctor who is
a troubled man.
A troubled man who happens to be a physician who's there. Early on, it's like I was like, that's Jamie Dornan. But man, that's barely Jamie Dornan. He felt different in this movie. Like in Belfast, there's a certain way. This feels different.
Absolutely, yeah.
In this, but good, different in a good way.
Yeah, it's. I mean, if you're going to compare that, he's almost unrecognizable, really.
Yeah.
Although both of them share traumas of war. That's about where the characters end, but similarities. But no, he's I thought he was pretty good too, actually.
Yeah. And then I knew that kid looked familiar. Jamie Dornan's son is played by Jude Law, who played Jamie Dornan's son in Belfast. Yes. Jude Hill. So I thought that was great. Jude Hill. So that's Leopold, the creepy kid. With his little suit and his little round eyeglasses and his perfectly product hair, reading Edgar Allan Poe. Yeah, just creepy kid. But if Poirot was gonna have a kid, maybe a nephew.
Yeah,
it would probably be Leopold.
Yeah, and maybe that actually is part of the film that I'm really not enamored with as much as I would like to be. I just think that even the most intelligent and quote unquote mature kids, they're not quite as this, they're still kids to a great extent.
Yeah.
And there was very little kid in that character.
Well, to be fair, really, even by the time you get to the end of this film, there's still something off about him.
Sure.
And not in he's a creep. I mean, in relation to the rest of the film, there's still something weird. Very Sixth Sense, if you will. He is odd. He's legitimately odd. And he's the child without a mom who's taking care of his dad.
Yeah.
So there's a lot to unpack with old Leopold. And you said that was like the weakest part of the film was that like him.
It was part of that to me, but the other weakest part and this is I was upset because I figured it out
Oh,
like 10 minutes in. Yeah, and so that was that I wanted to not have I wanted to be wrong, quite frankly.
were you right
And
about all of it?
I mean not some of the details,
Mhm.
but the general gist of it.
Right,
Yeah, I mean, like I was suspicious about a particular character from the very beginning,
right.
and my suspicions turned out to be, you know, this character does something. It's like, I don't know. I think there's more going on here, or, I mean, it was just there's a lot of things that it's like, oh well, I didn't think of that
Right.
exactly. Oh, that's what they were doing, or this sort of explains this or that, or that behavior, this behavior.
Yeah.
But
Well, that
as far as like I mean,
yeah. Well, it's what's fun is that's how Agatha Christie formulas work.
yes,
There are things. Quick aside, if you want like a very entertaining yet oddly accurate primer on whodunits, watch Murder by Death.
yeah,
Um, Go look it up. All-star cast. You will understand how all of these work. They explain how all of these detective novels work, and it's hilarious at the
hmm
same time. Alec Guinness, Peter Sellers, Peter Falk, uh, Maggie Smith. I mean, it's Eileen Brennan, I think, in it. It's I mean, it's and then more. It's crazy. That movie is crazy, and you'll never watch a whodunit again after
no,
the same
no,
way
yeah,
after you watch
yeah,
that movie. But it's entertaining and incredibly informative and accurate. No, for me, the part that I was least enamored with this film was actually Tina Fey. Which is weird because generally speaking, I don't have a problem with Tina Fey. But hey, look, if you enjoy what you're seeing and hearing on the Visually Stunning Movie Podcast, why not take a second to click subscribe if you're on YouTube, click follow wherever you're listening to us. Follow us on Twitter at VS Movie Podcast. Same over on Facebook. If you're on Instagram, it's Visually Stunning Movie Podcast. That would be awesome for us. We appreciate you listening. And now let's get back to the show.
yeah.
But here I found her grating the whole time, and I shouldn't have. She should.
I don't know.
I wanted her to be more likable because of
Well,
the way the movie plays out.
but I don't know
Not
that.
likable, like super friendly.
Yeah.
You
Well,
know what I
but
mean?
I think at the end of the film you see more of the real her, or maybe midway through the film you see more of the real her, rather. Where at the beginning it's this kind of who she's acting how she's supposed to act,
Right.
saying whatever but it's all yeah. I mean, I would agree that she's grating. I would just say I don't know if I think that's kind of that's kind of the point of her character. Maybe not to the point of being a distraction, but I do think that you know uh,
And maybe
the man.
maybe that was a choice to if she grates, she
I
makes
I
just to
I
get on
think
Poirot's nerves.
yeah. But I mean, you got to remember, Perot thinks that he has no friends, and so someone claiming to be his friend,
Is a novelty.
is a novelty. And
Well, to be fair, he has had one friend. He had one friend, and he lost that friend.
yeah,
And so he's damaged from the war.
sure,
He's damaged from his career. He's really damaged from that. I mean, if one wanted to do a deep dive, one could probably trace it all probably the eventual downfall of Poirot back to book. So, but yeah, he did have a friend who he legitimately considered a friend. And then he lost him. So yeah, so I think people that made that assumption, that was unusual to him. She might have been his friend ish,
yeah, I
but
think so yeah,
he was never going to let her be his friend. So yeah, So that was like the worst part. But again, that could have just been a choice. If she grates on me, maybe that's to drive him.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well,
So it could be, but it
yeah.
just that was really annoying to me. I think I didn't realize that the guy that wrote this, Michael Green. I was like, I'll bet he wrote the first two, and he did. So he wrote the scripts for Murder on the Orient Express and Death on the Nile. But he also did the screenplay for Jungle Cruise, Blade Runner 2049, Alien Covenant, Logan. And I was like, wow, that's a really, really impressive. And then I go back and I'm like, 2011, Green Lantern.
Yeah. No. Yeah. Well, there's a lot of hit and miss.
Well, he did a lot of television too, which I mean, a lot of, Sex and the City, Smallville, Everwood, Heroes, The River, which is a really highly underappreciated one season television show, by the way. But then, Logan, Covenant, a couple of the shorts before 2049, and then 2049, and Murder on the Orient Express, Call of the Wild, American Gods, Jungle Cruise, Death of the... I mean, so he's been doing pretty well of late. So that was interesting. Like I said, it's nice that Branagh's still behind the camera, directing. I think because he likes the material.
He has a genuine love for it.
And we say that a lot, in Hollywood. It's like, don't let people that don't like the material make the material, because then you're not going to get the best version of that.
Well, you get maybe, you'll get people, well, you get an interesting version. And it's like, well, yes, but you may get an interesting version that betrays the whole,
right, that you're putting off the people that liked the original version.
Anyway,
there are ways to, I mean, he moved the setting for this one to a more, a continental feel,
well,
than a house in the English countryside.
And why not? I mean, Venice is, there's an aesthetic. If anyone's ever been there or hasn't been there, I recommend going before it slips into the sea. As they point out. No,
it's on our list.
There's what? A connection. You feel a sense of history there that you may not feel in a lot of places. And you feel that in a lot of England places as well. But it's kind of the exotic nature of boats and the city where people travel by boat, and the inconvenience and whatnot that stems from that. But the inconvenience is almost part of the charm.
Right.
Why would you live there? Because you kind of like the fact that it's, what it is. So I mean, I don't mind the change. In fact, because and you can do a gothic horror film in England. It's not like Hammer Films didn't exist and didn't do them.
Right.
But I think visually, what was coming out of Italy was a little more interesting, a little more exploitive at times as well. But I don't know. It felt fine to me. I was totally
like
fine.
I said, you can play with your material, but you have to, the guts of it have to be right. And I think that's what he brings. He tries to keep the guts of things correct in terms of this franchise. And so that's good. If you like the first two, obviously, I think you're going to like this one. It's a tighter cast than than Death on the Nile. That was pretty sprawling. And sometimes too much. This feels a little more compact. And again, it's a little more claustrophobic. It's in this one building in Venice during basically a power outage in 1947. It's almost a power outage. Huge storm outside. So it is very dark and it feels very gothic horror. So it's got that nice feel to it. There's still an array of red herrings, all of the things that you expect from the genre you get, but it's okay. We say formulas are formulas for a reason. Because they work as long as you as long as you make, you can play around it and make that the interesting bits, but then the formula still has to work. And Branagh's done that really well, I think, across this franchise, and this is no exception. It opens next week on the 15th of September. Yeah, I mean, if you want to see it in IMAX, go ahead. Like I said, because you're right, some of the cinematography is great, but it's not like these huge sprawling. It's not like watching Lawrence of Arabia in IMAX.
Sure. It's very intimate, but when you watch the film, what you'll notice is they're shooting from awkward angles.
Yeah.
Either a little too high, a little too low, and they kind of switch between the two, which will cause you kind of a sense of unbalance.
Yeah, well, and I noticed coming in, it was the opening sequence where it's just clips of Venice. Before the world starts. I was sitting there thinking to myself, and it's like, did they just grab the second AD and send him out and go shoot a bunch of B-roll with weird angles, not hugely weird angles, but like can't the camera 5 degrees left.
Yeah,
and up close at ground level of pigeons. Just kind of stuff like that.
Which is, and that, and it really is used to make the audience uncomfortable to a certain extent. We don't talk about that part of cinematography or that part of film as much as maybe we should. But, if this film is shot in a more traditional manner, it's not probably as, as off balancing and creepy as this is. I mean, I think the artistry involved there needs to be acknowledged because it's often something that we just think cinematography is pretty pictures. How hard is it to frame up things? But when you see something like this that says, okay, yes, we're gonna purposefully make you feel like everything's a little bit off for an entire film. That and it works in this case for me because, well, things are a little bit off, and some of the I don't know. There was a lot of the cinematic choices that I really liked. Use of color, again, it harkens back to a lot of the Italian horror films of this in the 70s, really, which I'm not an expert about by no means, the Gallo or whatever films, but I enjoy quite a few of them. So
yeah, well, I just had to, I'm not as steeped in all of the cinematographers' names.
Yeah,
out there. So Harris M. Barlicus, who shot Death on the Nile. He shot Murder on the Orient Express. He shot Belfast. He also shot Meg 2. Which I haven't seen, but that's a weird blip. But he also shot Cinderella, the live action remake. He shot Locke with Tom Hardy
in the car.
In a car, which that's ridiculous. He shot Thor, which Branagh directed. So yeah, he's got a wide swath of stuff that he has shot, but he's also worked with Branagh a lot. So I think that probably helped here. I'll bet they had a shorthand going on. So yeah,
probably, yeah, undoubtedly. That's and that's why a lot of artists will continue to work with someone, because they've already developed that shorthand.
Yeah.
So, but no, I think it's a well-made film. I don't know that an Agatha Christie story is really ever going to fully satisfy me because of the kind of formula that it's all based around.
Because you're so smart.
No, it has. Like I said, when I go into these films, and when I see these films, I think Knives Out is the kind of like modern version of whatnot, but I don't want to know. I want to be completely.
You can't help but try to figure it out. But you're right. I do the same thing, and I'm always like, you never know if you want to be right or you want to be wrong.
I know I always want to be wrong.
Right. Yeah, because then you're like, you got me. But sometimes you just want to be like, I knew it. Yeah, so
well, but that was my, and it was like I don't know, but there's some actually there's a playfulness to some of the scenes. Yes, it's a little darker, but I actually the seance stuff is a lot of fun. I thought,
Yeah.
and how it all plays out. Well, it doesn't end too well,
Yeah.
but a lot of that I enjoyed. I don't know. I just think that it is an interesting, different take on the character. I just wish I wasn't able to
Right.
figure it out.
Okay.
Yeah,
There you go.
and I wish the kid was a little more of a kid at some point,
At,
because I think there's
just
going to
at
be
some
just
point,
a little bit. Yeah,
just to,
just
yeah,
a
that
moment. Just give me
I can see that. I can see that. So yeah, A Haunting in Venice, 20th Century Pictures, now owned by Disney.
yeah.
I wonder if this will make its money back. I don't know
I
what
don't.
the budget was.
Yeah, I was going to say I don't. It was probably less than Death on the Nile, but that's just me.
Oh, it has to be. It
Well, but
has to be.
every time I think that, it turns out that it's not, and it's like, how did you manage that? Anyway,
Around 70 million.
yeah, it's pretty pricey.
So
I
Death
think
on
it's
the
got,
Nile was around 90.
yeah, okay. So I mean, we'll see.
But I
Different.
think Disney
It
would
is.
like to win right now.
Disney would take a break even right now.
Actually, yeah, it's true. I can
They
see
would. They
this.
would.
I can see this doing
I
okay.
Yeah, and I think it will probably do well in Europe.
Yeah,
I don't. Again, when you're up to like a $70 million budget, it's a little daunting when you wouldn't probably be able to get the star power that you have in this, but you could have made this, and this, a cheap 30 million, but um, you know,
yeah,
70 is a little daunting, but considering the people involved, maybe that's, not that they probably had to pay each of the main actors $1 million a piece. So there you
yeah.
go.
Well, and that's assuming we didn't have to. I almost said overpay Michelle Yeoh, and that would have been taken completely the wrong way. Her paycheck probably has gone up. So
Yeah,
even if she wasn't demanding, even if this whole cast wasn't demanding, because Brandon's getting paid to direct and
yeah,
star, so he's got a deal worked out. So they cut a little bit of money there. Tina Fey's not dragging in $5 million. So
but
Jim
yeah,
Dornan's not dragging in. So yeah, no, a lot of this probably went to location costs, to be honest.
well, there is some of that as well. Yeah,
So I'll bet a majority of this went to location costs.
some nice costuming in it too.
Yeah, there is, and the score's good. I thought the
Yeah,
music was good, the sound was good.
I
It
think
all
generally
played together
speaking,
really well. It had a nice vibe to
yeah.
it.
I mean, and I love seeing Halloween or Day of the Dead type celebrations that are slightly different than what we get in America.
I know, right?
Um, I really enjoy oh, that's how they do it, and I don't know if that's, how accurate that is, but I just enjoy, what the Bond film that opened with the Day of the Dead, or, that sort of stuff where it's like,
Yeah,
oh, you're taking something that's familiar, but showing you a different side of it. And I really like that. So there's a lot I really liked about this film. I think most people would be fine with it.
yeah, they should be. So that's it. So Death on the Nile, Haunting in Venice, September 15th. See it. I think it's
Yeah.
good. It's a fun ride. It's not 2 hours. It's an hour 48 or something ridiculous like that.
It actually it ends a little more quickly than I think that I was anticipating too. But
Well, once they get to the end, it does wrap up really fast.
yeah,
But yeah, so this isn't a 2.5 hour, 3 hour epic. And I think that's actually going to help its box office, truth be told. More screenings a day, but B, it's a little easier to sit through. You're not like, it's like, oh my God, I have to go sit through 3 hours of Oppenheimer, which I loved, but that's not for everyone.
well, it's a commitment. It's a different sort of commitment.
It's a different sort of commitment. So this one's good. So there you go. We've got a couple more movies coming out in the coming weeks, but schedules are changing.
Yeah.
It's interesting. We're going to be talking about some TV shows, so watch for those. But until we get to those, don't forget to like us, follow us on social media. You know how that works. Like, follow, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. Wherever you're listening and or watching, clickety click, click, click. That would be great. So till we talk to you again, I'm Mark. That is Ryan. Bye, Ryan.
See you, friends.
And we'll talk to you all later. Bye-bye.